Hey guys, tonight we're heading into the gritty underbelly of ancient Rome where the blood might be fake, but your regret is real. You blink awake in the dark. It smells like wet limestone and boiled cabbage, which wouldn't be so bad if your back didn't feel like it was being held together with twine and bad decisions. The ground beneath you is just dirt, but you're lucky enough to have a threadbare blanket, or at least the largest scrap of it that wasn't already chewed by rats. Someone coughs down the corridor. You hope they're alive. You don't check. There's no sunrise, not that you'd see it anyway. This place doesn't believe in windows. What wakes you isn't light, but the clatter of chains and a barked command in Latin too lazy to be enunciated. You're not Roman, so it sounds like gravel poured over steel. You stand because everyone else does. You mimic. You survive. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it where you are? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're escorted, well, more like herded out of the cell block with the others. It's your first full day at the the Gladiator school, and you've already lost track of time. You remember being captured, sort of. Maybe you were a soldier, maybe a criminal. Maybe you owed someone powerful money, and this was cheaper than prison. Historians still argue whether all gladiators were slaves or if some actually volunteered. If they did, you haven't met any of those weirdos yet. The place smells like sweat and blood, but also something faintly medicinal, an herbal tang that sticks in your nostrils like regret. You pass a guy sharpening a blade with a stone so casually you'd think he was whittling soup spoons. You'd also think he wasn't missing 3 fingers on that hand. He sees you staring. He doesn't smile. Your first impression of the Ludus courtyard is that it's just big enough to crush hope. There's sand everywhere, trampled, soaked, gritty. You think it's sand until you realize there are bones mixed in. Chicken, hopefully. Maybe. Nobody says anything about them. That's probably on purpose. The walls are high. Not fortress high, just you're not climbing out high. And there are balconies, one of which currently hosts a man in a toga, and sandals so clean you suspect he owns all of you. He waves lazily, like you're not people but horses at auction. That, it turns out, is not far from the truth. You're divided into groups. Someone throws you a tunic. It's more whole than fabric, but you put it on because modesty still clings like your last shred of dignity. Then someone throws you a stick, a literal stick. It's meant to be a wooden training sword, but yours looks like a tree branch with aspirations. You're paired off. You face a man with a nose that's clearly been broken more times than a poorly made promise. He looks tired, but not in a way that makes him slower, just in a way that makes him dangerous. He doesn't wait. He swings. You flinch and catch the stick across your ribs. You yelp. He doesn't. They don't teach you technique, not at first. They teach you rhythm, the music of survival. Step swing, Duck. Breathe. Block, grunt, stumble. Don't cry, not because crying is shameful, but because it wastes water. That, and someone will probably mock you in Gaulish, which sounds particularly cruel when shouted. There's a brief break, barely time, to wipe the blood from your mouth. Your blood, not his. A slave hands out vinegar water and stale barley bread. It tastes like punishment. Apparently, this is the famous Gladiator diet, heavy on carbs, low on joy. Some say it keeps you bulky. Others say it's cheap. Both are probably true. A rat runs past your feet. You don't flinch anymore. You overhear the older trainees grumbling. One has a festering wound on his thigh, wrapped in linen gone gray. The doctor, a man whose only qualification seems to be that he owns leeches, promised he'd be fine. The wound now smells like rotten onions. He'll be dead in a week. No one says this out loud, but it's in the way they avoid looking at him, like he's already gone. You hear a bell, not a church bell, a Roman bell, deep, brass, cold. It means assembly. You all shuffle forward past the armory. You catch a glimpse of real gear metal helmets shaped like fish nets, tridents, heavy rectangular shields. You wonder which you'll end up using. You hope it's something with reach. You're already starting to hate how close people get in this place. Then you see the notice board. It's just a plank with names scratched on it in charcoal. A guard reads them out, droning like a bored priest. Your name isn't called yet, which feels like both a blessing and a threat. You don't know which is worse, fighting or waiting to fight. Night falls. You're back in the cell. You can't sleep, so you listen. Someone is muttering a prayer. Another is humming something haunting, maybe from their homeland. A third is crying softly like they're trying to hide it. You stare up at the ceiling, just wood and shadow, and think about your old life. Did you have a dog? A sister? A name that didn't sound like a curse? You drift off eventually, not into restful sleep, but into a shallow kind of exhaustion. You dream of sand that pulls you under and cheering crowds with no faces. When you wake, your heart is still racing, and so begins your life as a gladiator. Not in the arena yet, no. That comes later. First the training, the food, the bruises, and the slow creeping realization that you are no longer a person, but a spectacle waiting to happen. You wake up aching in places you didn't know could ache. Your neck, your back, your ego. Even your ears feel tired. There's a dull throb behind your eyes, like your dreams were just more practice sessions in disguise. Your straw mattress has collapsed into a lumpy mess, and someone's been snoring like a dying ox all night. You haven't slept. You've survived unconsciousness. No one tells you what day it is. You stopped asking. Outside, the morning light doesn't warm you. It glares. And with it comes the smell, your new home's signature perfume, metal sweat dust, and something that can only be described as regret, boiled in vinegar. The ludus doesn't air out. It ferments. You're marched into the training yard again. Same routine, but your nose twitches. Something is extra foul today. You glance around. The other new recruits wrinkle their faces too. You're not imagining it. The smell is worse. And then you see it. The source. The baths. No, not the communal ones you splash around in at the end of the day. These are the real training baths. Massive stone tubs used to soak wounds, blunt trauma bruises, and probably broken dreams. Someone vomited in one. Or died. Possibly both. The fluid's gone green. No one's cleaning it. You're led past the baths, through a narrow archway, and into a covered hall. This is the palace area, the spot for technique training, where you strike at wooden posts shaped like human torsos. They're wrapped in leather and packed with straw. You're told to imagine an enemy. You already have a few in mind. Your task today is simple. Strike the target with the correct rhythm, precision, and power. Don't hit too hard. Don't be sloppy. And for the love of Mars, don't pause to ask questions. You'll get thrashed. Not figuratively. You're handed a wooden rudis, the signature training sword. It's heavy chipped and splintered from hundreds of hits. Your arms protest. You swing. You miss. You swing again. You make contact. It hurts more than it should because you're not only hitting the post, you're absorbing the shock through your bones. You glance sideways at the guy next to you. He's older, has a shaved head, and one eye. He hits the post with a force that makes it whimper. He doesn't flinch, doesn't sweat. You silently nickname him the Wall. He notices, doesn't smile, just says, "Don't waste your strength. It's not your day to die." Which is comforting. Your lanista walks by. He's always watching. Today he has a small leather-bound notebook. He stops behind you, says nothing, just watches. You feel the weight of his judgment like a helmet you didn't ask to wear. You strike harder, more precise. He still says nothing, then moves on. You don't know if that's good or bad. You'll find out eventually. After drills, you're ushered back into the courtyard for group sparring. This part is less about form and more about chaos, because that's what the crowd likes. You're told that looking graceful is fine, but dying dramatically is better. That's what sells tickets. Historians still debate whether gladiators were actually trained to die well, or if that's just romantic nonsense from ancient poets who never had to dodge a trident. You'd lean toward the nonsense, but the way your instructors talk about beautiful deaths makes you wonder. You're placed in the sand, face to face with a stranger. You don't even get names anymore, just nods. He has a curved dagger and a net. You have a short wooden gladius and a round shield too small for your body. Great matchup. You circle each other. He lunges. You step back. The net grazes your face. You swing low, tap his leg. He hisses and smirks. You hear a guard chuckle behind you. And then he catches your foot with the net and yanks. You fall. Hard. Your shield tumbles away and the sand gets in your mouth. He stands over you, doesn't stab, just nods again, respectful-like, and walks off. Apparently he was told not to kill. Yet. You limp to the side, face burning more from shame than pain. Another trainee throws you a flask of water. You take a swig. It's warm and metallic, but it clears your throat. Lunch arrives late. Again, the same sad mush. But today, you're offered a second scoop. You don't ask why. You take it. Turns out you're about to meet the medicus, the resident healer. He smells of vinegar smoke and herbs you don't recognize. He looks at your knee, prods it, says, "Still works," then wraps it in linen and slaps on a thick brown paste that smells like despair. You thank him. He grunts. One of the veterans tells you the paste is made from animal fat wine and crushed onion. Or was it burnt fig? No one really knows. What they do know is that it either heals you or attracts flies the size of thumbnails. You'll find out which by morning. You spend the rest of the afternoon doing balance exercises because apparently dying on your feet is better than tripping into a sword. You're made to stand on a post while holding a stone above your head. Your arms shake. Your legs scream. You fall twice. You get no applause. Evening comes with no ceremony. Just more aching limbs and a lukewarm basin. This time the water's redder than usual. You don't ask whose blood it is. You don't want to know. You sit beside your cellmate. He offers you a dried fig from his secret stash. Says he used to be a baker. You almost cry from the sweetness. It's the first taste of home in weeks. That night before sleep, someone starts humming again. Same melody as yesterday, but slower. Like a lullaby meant for warriors who never asked for war. You stare up at the stone ceiling. It doesn't look any softer. You close your eyes. The smell of sweat and oil still clings to your nostrils. And somewhere in your dreams, you're back in the yard, swinging endlessly at a wooden post that never swings back. Your morning begins with a scream. Not your own, thankfully, but you don't get up any slower for it. The sound echoes down the corridor, bounces off the stone like it's mocking you. Someone got injured during dawn drills, or maybe punished, or maybe both. You'll probably never know. The ludus runs on a strict need-to-know, never policy. Your body feels marginally less broken today, which is either a good sign or the beginning of numbness. You sit up, stretch, hear about 6 different pops in your spine, and wonder vaguely if your body will ever feel normal again. Probably not. You're adjusting to the new normal one, where pain is background noise and hope is rationed like wine during drought. They bring you into the armory today. That feels significant, not celebration significant, more like test of worthiness significant. A guard motions for you to step forward. You're handed a bundle of gear, your first real look at what a gladiator actually wears and, more importantly, suffers through. First, the manica, a thick leather arm guard that laces around your sword arm. It's stiff and smells like old goat, but it's better than bare skin. Then, the ochria, a single shin guard made of metal and leather, just one. Why only one, historians still argue whether this was to add drama or just to keep you off balance. Either way, it doesn't scream protection, it whispers fashionable injury. Then the helmet. It's heavy, like wearing a bronze bucket with bad ventilation. The slit for your eyes is narrow, and every breath echoes inside like you've crawled inside your own panic. It pinches your ears. You feel like a roasted beetle. Finally, the tunic. Red, naturally. So, it hides the blood. That's not a rumor, it's a functional design choice. Nobody wants to see a pale blue tunic turn into a horror show. Red is cleaner, even when it's soaked. You're not given a full set of armor. That's reserved for the big-name fighters, the veterans, the favorites. You're somewhere between possible investment and arena seasoning. You don't rate the good stuff yet. Your first time walking in full gear is comical. You wobble. You trip over your own foot. The guard watching you mutters something under his breath, probably a prayer for your future opponent. Then comes the test. You're led to a sparring ring where 3 others stand, similarly armored. You're told to face one of them. No names, no warning, just go. You lunge. Your sword scrapes off his shield. He counters, jabs you in the stomach. The armor takes most of it, but not all. You wheeze. You backpedal. Your helmet shifts slightly, and now you can barely see. Welcome to the real fight. The instructors don't stop the match. They watch. This is as much about endurance as it is skill. How long can you last before giving up? How hard will you push to impress them? You trip again. Catch yourself. Slam your sword into your partner's thigh. He grunts. You back away. You feel something strange in your chest. Pride, panic. Both you last 5 more minutes. When the match ends, you're not declared winner or loser. Just dismissed. Later, you find out that one of the other trainees cracked a rib. Another sprained his ankle. You're lucky. Just a bruised ego and a welt where your helmet smacked your temple. The afternoon is spent maintaining your gear. That's right, you clean your armor. You learn to oil leather, sharpen blades, scrub blood stains, and polish brass to a dull gleam. Not because it looks nice, because rust kills faster than a sword. There's an unspoken rule: treat your gear well, or it'll betray you in the arena. You watch one of the older fighters, a man called Marius, polish his helmet like it's a sacred object. He says nothing the whole time, just buffs the same spot for nearly an hour. His fingers move like it's ritual, not routine. You ask him if he's fought often. He says 32 times. You ask how many he's won. He doesn't answer. Dinner that night is special, which means slightly more barley and a chunk of cheese the size of your thumb. You savor it like ambrosia. A fellow trainee tries to trade for it, offers you a bronze ring he found buried in the sand. You don't even think about it. You eat the cheese. That night, as you sit by the wall, a storm rolls in. Not thunder, just heavy rain. It pelts the courtyard, seeps through cracks, pools, under the doors. You press your back to the driest corner of your cell and listen. The rain drowns out the groans, the whispers, even the snoring. For a moment the ludus sounds peaceful. You try to remember your last real conversation, the last time someone asked how you felt. That concept doesn't exist here. Feelings are weaknesses. Weaknesses are wounds. Wounds are invitations to die. You dream of wearing different armor, something soft, maybe padded, maybe ceremonial. You dream of helmets that don't echo your own breath like a countdown. You dream of armor that protects, not performs. But even in your dreams, the armor pinches. The food arrives late again today, and this time it's not even warm. You stare down at the bowl of barley gruel and imagine it grumbling back at you. It's clumpy, sticky, and vaguely sour, like it gave up on its own potential halfway through being cooked. A generous splash of vinegar on top makes it Roman, apparently. You'd argue it just makes it more insulting. You eat it anyway, because hunger is an impatient beast, and you've learned that refusing food here is as good as volunteering for an extra training round. And you do not want that, not today. Your stomach rumbles ominously. So does everyone else's. You're learning the rhythm of gladiator digestion. It's not musical. Today's training starts early and hard. No warm-up, no stretch, just a barked order and the sudden weight of a round shield shoved into your chest. You brace yourself and stagger. Your arms are already sore from yesterday's sparring, and the shield digs into your collarbone like it holds a personal grudge. You're told you'll be simulating close-quarter combat, which is just a fancy way of saying you're going to be extremely uncomfortable in every possible way. You and two others are shoved into a narrow pit, waist deep in sand, with only wooden swords. It's like wrestling in a sandbox, but with weapons bruises and a crowd of guards watching for entertainment. One of the other trainees sneezes mid-swing. A glob of something lands on your forehead. You take it as a blessing. Maybe it's luck. Maybe it's just spit. You lose the first round. You trip over someone's ankle and land face first in the sand. Your mouth tastes like old pennies. You stand back up anyway, not because you're brave, but because lying down is a fast way to get stepped on. You fight again. This time you last longer. You even land a blow on someone's side. Not hard enough to count, but enough that one of the guards makes a sound that might be approval. You try not to smile. After the pit match, you're sent to the nutrition tent. That's what they call it. It's more like a lean-to with buckets of dry food and a table of questionable liquids. You're handed a cup of sour goat milk. It smells like someone put despair through a cheesecloth. You ask, what else is available? A senior gladiator grins and tells you the only alternatives are barley old pickled fish or whatever's growing in the cracks behind the bathhouse. You decide the milk is fine. You hear whispers about the horderii, a nickname given to gladiators known for their carb-heavy diets. Apparently, Some spectators even called them barley men. Historians still argue whether this diet was by design or by necessity. You're leaning toward cheap and cruel as the real reason. Later, a new recruit vomits during drills. No one helps. He gets a nod from the trainer, a slap on the back, and a warning. Next time puke on your opponent, not the sand. You meet a cook once, briefly. She's missing 2 fingers and carries a wooden spoon like a weapon. She explains that everything you eat here is meant to make you heavy, not fast. Gladiators aren't dancers. Your meat on display. The extra padding, it's not for show. It's to keep you alive a little longer in case of a shallow wound. You glance down at your belly later and swear it's starting to round, not with muscle, with barley. During afternoon sparring, someone farts loud enough to stop a match. The lanista calls a halt. The trainees freeze. The offender doesn't confess. So the whole group is sent on a 5-lap punishment run, full armor, no water. By the 3rd lap, you're swearing vengeance on barley fish vinegar and everyone named Gaius. By the 5th lap, you don't care who farted. You just want to sit down. Evening comes. The food is the same. More barley. A sprinkle of salt, if you're lucky. One guy claims he once had a fig in his porridge and that it was the greatest day of his life. You don't know whether to believe him or mourn with him. That night your stomach growls again. It's not hunger, it's rage. You dream of roasted meat, sweet dates, and clean water. You dream of bread crusts thick enough to chew. You dream of an olive that isn't shriveled to the size of a fingernail. When you wake, you're still full of barley, still aching, still very much a gladiator in training. You learned something important today in Rome. Even your diet has a role to play. You're not just here to fight. You're here to be seen. And when the crowd watches a thick, sweaty man swing a sword with drama and fury, they want him to look full, powerful, heavy like a storm, not light, like a dancer. You don't train to survive. You train to sell the moment. And if that moment smells like barley and vinegar, well, that's the flavor of fame, apparently. The lanista calls you forward today. No reason given. Just your name barked out like a challenge and the impatient gesture that means, move, or I'll find someone else who can. You've learned not to hesitate when he does that. Hesitation earns bruises, or worse, more barley. You follow him through a narrow hall behind the training yard. It's quieter back here. The sounds of clashing wood and grunts fade with every step. Eventually, you emerge into a small open courtyard, flanked by arches. A few other fighters are here, none in training gear. They sit or lean, watching you with expressions that could mean anything: boredom, curiosity, or maybe hunger. Hard to tell anymore. At the far end of the courtyard stands a man in an expensive-looking tunic. His sandals are spotless. His beard is trimmed. He holds a stylus in one hand, a wax tablet in the other. He doesn't look at you immediately. You get the sense he doesn't need to. This is the Lanista's superior, the Dominus, the actual owner of the Ludus, the man who bought you. Not metaphorically, actually bought you. You are his property, his investment. And right now, he's inspecting the merchandise. He finally looks up, eyes sharp, like daggers dipped in wine. He doesn't smile, just gestures for you to stand straight. You try. The bruises on your ribs complain. So does your dignity. He circles you once, twice. He pokes your arm, prods your shoulder, lifts your chin like he's inspecting a melon at market. The Lanista mutters something in Latin. You catch the word potential. You hope it's a compliment. The Dominus grunts, then nods. You're dismissed. That's it. You return to training, but things feel different now. Everyone knows you've been evaluated. Some nod at you with a little more respect. Others with a little more jealousy. The truth is, gladiators don't own themselves. Even the most famous ones, the champions of the arena, are still contracts, still commodities. You're not a person here. You're a line item on someone's balance sheet. Later that day, you overhear two trainers arguing about another fighter, one who got too injured to be useful. There's talk of selling him to a provincial arena. Smaller crowds, fewer rules, more blood. It's cheaper that way. Less overhead. They say the Dominus wants a return on every coin he spends. That's why the barley's stale and the beds are stone. Why the helmets pinch and the ointments burn. Why everyone's so replaceable. Historians still debate the extent of gladiators' legal rights. Some say they had some protections under Roman law. Others insist they were no more respected than livestock. You're starting to suspect it depends less on law and more on who owns you. After training, you're taken to the inscription room. It's not fancy. Just a small chamber with a wooden bench, a desk, and a scribe who looks like he hates being alive. He writes your name down, or tries to, misspells it, doesn't correct it. He records your weight, your height, your assigned weapons. You ask why. He says, so the Dominus knows what he's losing if you die. Comforting. There's a brief pause where he looks up at you and asks, do you have any unique traits? Scars. Stories. You mention a birthmark on your shoulder. He doesn't care. He scribbles something else and waves you off. You leave wondering if he even wrote the right name. Back in the yard, a younger recruit is crying, quietly behind the water barrels. You pretend not to notice. He's new. You were him once. Maybe you still are. Someone once told you gladiators are chosen because they're strong. But here, you learn they're made strong through fear, hunger, exhaustion, and the realization that your owner will never see you as more than an asset. You're reminded of it again that evening when the Dominus visits the training yard with two other men, wealthy citizens, judging you like racehorses. They point. They laugh. One says something about your nose. The Lanista chuckles and nods. They're not laughing with you. They're laughing at what they bought. You go to sleep angry. Not the screaming kind of anger, just a deep aching kind, like a heavy stone inside your chest. You dream of walking through a market, but you're the one on the shelf, standing stiff while strangers inspect your muscles and teeth. One of them picks you up, shakes his head, and puts you back. In the morning, you'll train again. You'll spar again. You'll maybe earn a nod from a guard. Maybe not. But you'll still belong to someone. And that someone is waiting to see whether you're worth keeping. You're not told ahead of time. No fanfare. No trumpet. Just a quick shout from a guard. Your name again. Always your name. And then the words, "You fight tomorrow." That's it. No explanation of who. No rundown of rules. No map of the arena or cheat sheet of weaknesses. Just a date with fate written in ash and sand. Your stomach drops. You've seen what that means. You've watched other recruits vanish behind the big wooden gate, hearts pounding in their throats, and come back either limping or not at all. The lucky ones return with bruises and stories. The unlucky ones become whispers. Remember Lucius? No. What happened? Exactly. You try to ask a trainer for more info, but he just shrugs. It's your turn. He might as well have said it was bound to happen eventually. That night food tastes like cardboard. Or maybe that's just how fear changes your tongue. You chew slowly, even though your body wants to scream. The others notice. They don't say anything, but they notice. One pats your shoulder, another nods solemnly. A third just avoids your eyes altogether. Nobody wants to get too close to a man who might not exist tomorrow. You're sent to the quiet side of the barracks, an unofficial tradition. Those scheduled to fight get their own corner. A courtesy, maybe, or just a way to keep the screams from waking the rest. The darkness feels heavier tonight. The walls press in. Your bedroll feels damp. The stone beneath you has never been colder. You sleep, but not really. Your body rests, but your mind keeps running laps. You dream of sand, so much sand. It clings to your skin, your lungs, your teeth. In the dream, the crowd chants something, but it's not Latin. It's your name distorted and broken over and over like a curse. Morning comes fast. You're dressed by others, another tradition. Your fellow trainees help you lace the manica, tighten your greaves, adjust the straps on your breastplate. You thought you'd feel like a warrior. You don't. You feel like a lamb being polished for the altar. You're handed a gladius, a real one this time. Not wood, not dulled. Steel cold and honest. The kind of weapon that changes history. Or ends it. You grip it tighter than you need to. The march to the arena is short, but it feels like a lifetime. You walk a narrow corridor, carved from stone, lit by torches that cast flickering shadows. Your breath is loud inside your helmet. You feel your heart behind your eyes. Your palms sweat, your knees shake. You try not to let it show. You arrive behind the gate. It's massive. Wood and iron, tall enough to swallow you whole. You hear the crowd on the other side. Hundreds, maybe thousands. They're loud, they're eager. They're not here for you. Not really. They're here for the fight. Any fight. You're just today's blood. Historians still argue whether gladiator games were about justice, ritual, or pure entertainment. Standing here, sword in hand, you realize it doesn't matter. It's all theater now. The gate creaks. You flinch. Then it rises slow and deliberate, like the jaws of something ancient. You step forward. The sun blinds you at first. Then you see it, the arena. It's vast. Sand stretches out in every direction. Stone walls loom above, lined with spectators in bright robes. The emperor isn't here today, thankfully. That kind of pressure could snap a spine. Your opponent waits across the sand. He's tall, broad. His armor is shinier than yours. His helmet more ornate. He carries a trident and a net, a retiarius. You've trained against that type, but never for real. You glance around, no exits, just walls and faces. Some cheer, some yawn. One woman eats olives like she's at a picnic. A horn sounds. It begins. You circle. He circles. The sand shifts underfoot. You're aware of everything. Your breath, the weight of your sword, the dryness in your mouth. He throws the net. You dodge barely. It snags your arm. You slash it away. He lunges. You block. The shock travels up your arm, rattling your bones. You counter. Your blade cuts fabric, maybe flesh. Hard to tell. He backs off. The crowd roars. You fight like it matters, because it does. Every swing, every breath, every decision, it all counts. At some point, your helmet shifts. Sand gets in your eyes. You blink, stumble. He charges. You drop. Not from strategy, just instinct. He misses. You roll. You rise. You thrust. And somehow you land a hit. He drops to one knee. He's not dead. Not yet. But he's wounded. You look up. The crowd cheers. Some boo. They don't agree. A man in robes stands, raises a hand. Your fate hangs on a thumb. But then mercy. You're spared. The opponent is dragged away. You stagger back through the gate, bleeding from your shoulder, shaking like a leaf. You fought. You survived. And now, you wait to see if it was enough. You're not even back in the barracks yet, when the helmet starts to feel like it's part of your skull. The sweat, the heat, the way the cheek guards press into your face. Every step makes it harder to breathe. It's like carrying your own private echo chamber, one that smells like iron oil and fear. You want it off, but a guard stops you. No, you walk back in full gear, because of course you do. Glory, or whatever scraps of it you earned, is for the arena. Outside of it, you're just another commodity. So, you stumble back through the corridor armor, clinking sword, dragging slightly in your right hand. Every breath feels shallow. Every heartbeat echoes like a war drum in your ears. By the time you get to the holding room, your legs feel like reeds. You sit heavily on a bench and finally pull off your helmet. It makes a wet squelch when it comes loose. You wipe your forehead with a cloth someone tosses at you. You don't even know who. You don't care. Someone sets down a cup of water near your foot. You chug it without asking. It tastes like metal and victory. You're not given time to bask in the moment. A medicus appears a young man with a crooked nose and a tunic 2 sizes too big. He pokes at your shoulder wound, nods, and slaps on a patch of something sticky and foul-smelling. You hiss. Good. Means it's working, he says with a smirk. He wraps your arm in linen. It's tight, but secure. Then he tells you not to sleep on that side. You nod, like you'll remember. You won't. Your reward, a stale roll of bread and half a cup of wine. The cheap kind, sour and thin. But it might as well be nectar from Olympus. Later, the lanista finds you. He studies your face, then grunts, "You didn't embarrass me." That's it. No praise, no handshake, just not an embarrassment, which in his world is basically a gold medal. You're dismissed. Back in the barracks, the others look up, a few nod. One offers you the better part of his bread. That's how you know you've crossed a line. You've gone from new meat to survivor. Not respected, not yet, but noticed. And that's the first currency in this place. But you're also starting to notice something else. The armor isn't just heavy when you wear it. It lingers. Even now, stripped down to your tunic, you feel the weight of it on your shoulders, in your spine, behind your eyes. Your body remembers how it clamped around your ribs, how the helmet muffled every thought. Armor is supposed to protect you. But in the ludus, it also controls you. Everything is chosen for you. The type of armor, the style of helmet, even the weapon in your hand. Not based on your skill or your preference, but on how entertaining it looks from the stands. You're learning the archetypes now. There's the Murmillo with his fish-shaped crest and heavy shield. The Retiarius, like the man you just fought armed with net and trident. The Secutor, with a smooth helmet designed to counter the Retiarius. It's all a balance of aesthetics, tradition, and planned spectacle. Historians still argue whether these classifications were rigid or flexible. Some claim fighters could change roles over time. Others insist once you were cast in a role, you stayed there like an actor in a never-ending play, doomed to repeat your part until death or disfigurement. Your assigned style. They haven't told you yet, but the armor you wore today, it wasn't random. It was a test. You lie on your cot and stare at the ceiling. Your shoulder throbs. Your ribs ache. You flex your fingers one by one, testing what still works. You think about that helmet, how it forced your head down, how you couldn't turn fully to your left, how in the chaos of the fight you nearly tripped over your own foot because the ochria, that single-leg greave, tilted your balance. It wasn't designed to help you. It was designed to shape you into something the audience could read, a silhouette, a symbol. You are no longer a man. You are becoming a character. And the armor, that's your costume. That night you sleep restlessly. You dream of walking onto the sand again, but this time the armor won't come off. You try to speak and hear only your own breath bouncing back. The crowd watches. They cheer, they boo, they demand a show, and your armor bows to them, even if your heart doesn't want to. You wake to the sound of someone retching. Again, same corner of the barracks, same miserable rhythm. This time it's Cassius, the young recruit who arrived 2 weeks ago with soft hands and 2 straight teeth. He's curled up against the wall now, dry heaving into a cloth. You don't move to help, not because you don't care, but because you've learned no one helps. Not here. Not unless you want to get pulled into someone else's downward spiral. You give him a look, a slow nod, the silent code for we all get there. He doesn't nod back. You're sore today. Not the kind of sore that makes you groan, but the kind that makes your joints feel like they're wrapped in wet rope. It's your body's way of telling you it survived. Barely. Your shoulder still throbs under the bandage. Your muscles feel like boiled leather. But you're alive. You fought, you bled, and you didn't die. In the ludus, that's what counts. The lanista sees you limping during warm-up. He calls you over and says, walk it off, or don't. Which is exactly the sort of motivation you'd expect from a man whose idea of compassion is occasionally not yelling. Today's drills are light for you anyway. You're grouped with the other survivors, everyone who's had at least one real match. It's an odd sort of promotion. Less yelling, more quiet nods, more eyes watching. You begin to notice a change not in yourself, but in how others look at you. The newer recruits make way when you walk past. The trainers give you slightly more useful advice like keep your elbow in unless you want to lose it. But the most jarring shift is this: you're starting to feel noticed. Which brings you to the next lesson in the Gladiator's curriculum. The blood isn't always yours. That sounds poetic until you're scrubbing dried gore off your own breastplate and realize half of it doesn't even smell like you. It's more sour, more metallic. You remember the moment in the arena when your blade caught the other man's arm. Just a graze, really. But there was blood, lots of it. It coated your arm, splashed your face, pulled in your sandal. You didn't notice in the moment. The adrenaline had you buzzing like a lit fuse. But afterward, standing in the corridor, shaking with your helmet tucked under your arm, you noticed. Not all of it was his. The medic later found a clean gash along your rib, a quiet, polite cut that didn't scream for attention, but bled anyway. It's the kind of wound that says, you almost didn't make it. Historians still argue how often gladiators actually died in the arena. Some say the death rate was lower than popular myth. After all, training a fighter was expensive. Others insist the records are skewed, that too many died off stage from infection shock or slow bleeding cuts nobody caught in time. What's clear is this bleeding was expected, welcomed even. The crowd wanted to see effort, to see risk. It didn't matter whose blood stained the sand as long as it came in buckets. Today you're asked to assist in cleanup, a lowly job, usually for the brand new recruits. You're not sure why they picked you. Maybe it's punishment. Maybe it's a test. Either way, you find yourself in the dim chamber where armor is scrubbed, swords are sharpened, and wounds are ignored. You spend an hour wiping blood off a helmet you didn't wear. There's a dent on the left side, deep enough to crack a skull. The padding inside is soaked through. The smell is a mix of rust and meat. Next, a breastplate, not yours. Heavier than yours. Bigger. Probably belonged to one of the veterans. The edge has been bent inward, like someone hit it with a hammer. You wonder if the man inside survived. You don't ask. You don't want to know. The blood on that one, still warm. You look down at your own hands. Your fingernails are stained red. Your tunic has patches of dried brown. You're not sure when they got there. You realize something out there in the sand no one can tell. The crowd can't distinguish your blood from your opponent's. They just see red and scream louder. Back in the courtyard, a few of the newer fighters are practicing their fall. Not the real kind, the theatrical kind. Arms wide, chest out. Stagger, twist, collapse. They're learning how to bleed beautifully. You remember your fight again, the way your opponent twisted as he fell. How his body hit the sand with a kind of flourish, his arm flung overhead like a dancer's final bow. You thought it was instinct. Now you're not so sure. That night you sit in your usual corner arms, resting on your knees. Someone lights a torch in the hallway, and its flicker catches the bandage on your side. It's spotted red again. You press your palm to it gently. Still yours, for now. You'd think the people trying to kill you would be the ones you hate the most. But no, not even close. The crowd is worse. You first notice it when your name gets called during roll. Not for a fight, just a mention. The trainer nods towards you and says survived his first bout. There's a ripple of interest from a few of the younger trainees. But what sticks with you is the sound from beyond the ludus walls, cheering. Your name, screamed by someone in a crowd you've never seen. It's not joy, it's bloodlust. At first you're flattered. A part of you even feels proud, like maybe you're becoming something more than a nameless body, but then it happens again and again. You hear shouts when you train, when you walk across the yard, when you so much as stretch before sparring. Always your name, always followed by laughter hoots and the occasional bet. They're watching. You just don't know how. Then you learn the ludus isn't just a training ground. It's part of a larger entertainment economy. Local boys scale walls to catch glimpses of your drills. Merchants sell sweet wine and figs outside, claiming their carts are favored by gladiators. Your image, bloodied and half snarling, has been scratched onto the side of an amphora as a joke. You're popular, apparently. And popularity here. It's a double-edged gladius. Some of the senior fighters chuckle about it. They've seen it before. The crowd loves you until you're boring, until you dodge too much, or bleed too little, or take too long to die. Then they boo. Then they heckle. Then they turn their cheers into chants for someone else. One veteran, a man with a twisted ear and missing eyebrow, tells you flatly, they like you today. Tomorrow maybe they'll want to see what color your insides are. You laugh. He doesn't. That afternoon you train on the outer edge of the yard. A few visitors lean against the stone wall, watching. You hear them talking about you like you're livestock. That's him. Bit short, don't you think? He moved quick last time. You don't turn to look. You've learned not to. But it burns, because you know now you are not a person in their eyes. You are a pet, a source of brief, bloody fun, a walking bet. Historians still debate the psychology of Roman spectators. Were they cruel, detached, desensitized, or simply swept up in the spectacle? Some say it was all about civic ritual, community bonding through blood. Others argue it was the ancient version of a football game, just with more severed limbs. You don't care about the academic angles. You just know what it feels like to hear someone scream for your death with a smile on their face. The worst part, you start performing for them, not on purpose. It starts small. A wider swing, a louder grunt, a longer pause before you land a blow. Things that draw attention, that make people watch. You hate yourself for it. But part of you also likes it. That part scares you the most. Later, during a sparring match, you take a hit to the thigh. It's not bad, but it stings. A few boys behind the wall cheer. Get him again, one yells. You stand up breathing heavy and lock eyes with your opponent. He smirks. You realize something, he's playing to the crowd too. That night a scribe visits your barracks. He's there to collect names and details for a public roster, the libellus. He asks you how you want to be described. You blink at him. Fierce, he offers. Merciless, he taps his stylus. We're workshopping some epithets. You say nothing. He writes the silent blade and moves on. You hate it, but not enough to stop him. Before bed, someone shares a rumor there's a statue being carved in the city of a gladiator. No one knows who it's supposed to be, but someone swears it looks like you. Probably nonsense. Still you wonder. And that's how the crowd gets you. Not all at once, but bit by bit. They make you wonder who you are without their eyes on you. And worse, whether you'd still matter if they stopped looking. They say victory earns you glory, but here in the ludus, victory earns you half a loaf of dry bread, 1 hour off training, and a new nickname you didn't ask for. You won your last match. That should feel like a triumph. Instead, your back still aches from where your opponent's trident handle slammed you into the dirt. You've got a bruise under your ribs that throbs every time you laugh, which isn't often. And today's reward is the privilege of waking up after the first bell. Luxury. You lie on your cot, staring at the ceiling. You can hear the others being dragged from their sleep, the scraping of sandals, the murmured complaints, the rustle of stiff linen. But you're allowed to lie here for 10 more minutes. You'd think that would feel good. It doesn't, because once the cheering fades and the blood dries and the sand is swept up, you're still here, still a gladiator. still sleeping on stone with straw, poking your shoulder blades. The others call you Silent Blade now. Even the lanista muttered it once, like he was testing how it tasted. It's followed you everywhere, scrawled into the wall near the water barrels, whispered by trainees when they think you're not listening. A joke, a prophecy, a brand. But you don't feel like a blade. You feel like a tool. Your victory didn't get you better food or better armor or even a mattress that doesn't smell like mildew. It got you attention, and in this place, attention is a currency that burns faster than it builds. You step out into the morning light and blink at the sudden brightness. Someone nods at you. Someone else looks away. You can feel the gap growing between you and the newer recruits. They don't speak to you the same way anymore. Not because they respect you, because they're afraid you won't stay. Today you're not training, you're working. Assigned to maintenance duty, sweeping sand, organizing equipment, assisting the armamentarii, the men who tend to weapons and gear. It's dull, but necessary. The weapons are stored in racks under a shaded roof, organized by type, gladii tridents, psyche spears. You're told to inspect each for nicks, bends, and rust. The gladii, short, stocky blades with double edges, are heavier than they look. You wipe one clean, then another, then another. It becomes a rhythm. One of the senior blacksmiths asks, "You know how to sharpen?" You nod. You've watched. Enough to fake it. He grunts and hands you a whetstone. Hours pass. You lose yourself in the scrape of metal. It's oddly soothing. The repetition, the hiss of steel on stone, the flick of water to cool the blade. You realize you've sharpened the same sword twice. You don't care. Then you notice something odd. A gladius with a worn leather grip, carved faintly, with a name almost scratched away, but still there, Lucanus. You remember Lucanus, a quiet fighter, heavy-set, strong, took a spear to the side 2 weeks ago. He didn't scream, just folded like a cloak. You haven't seen him since. And yet his weapon is still here. No one speaks of him, just like no one speaks of Posthumus, who fell badly in training and never got up again, or Frax, who was rumored to be sold to a mine after refusing to fight. You start to understand even winning doesn't make you safe. It just gives you a slightly better chance of being remembered for a little longer. Historians sometimes glamorize the concept of fame in the arena. They talk about gladiators, like celebrities, men who were adored, fed well, treated like heroes. But you know the truth. Fame here is as fragile as a rib cage. It buys you nothing permanent. You finish your duty and report to the lanista. He waves you off with a grunt. No feedback, no thanks, just a nod and a ledger scratch. Later, during rest hour, you sit under the olive tree in the training yard, one of the few pieces of beauty in this place. It's old, crooked, probably planted when the ludus was built. You wonder how many fighters have sat beneath it, tracing the same knots in the bark, thinking the same thoughts. Another fighter joins you, an older man named Crixus, a retiarius, fought in over 40 matches. lost a hand, once kept fighting. He stares ahead and says, "They don't love you. They love what you do to die slower than most." You nod. He spits into the dirt. You keep winning, and the crowd forgets the last man. You lose once, and they remember everything. Backward. You ask if he regrets it. He shrugs. What else was I going to do? Plow fields, then almost too softly to hear. He adds, I miss being tired from real work. Dinner that night is barley stew. Again. But there's a sliver of onion in it. You savor it like honey. Someone asks you to tell the story of your last match. A trainee named Pollux, wide-eyed, trembling hands, maybe 17. He sits beside you, begging for details. What did it feel like when they cheered your name? You want to lie. To say it felt like thunder and lightning, that your heart soared, that it was the most alive you've ever felt. But you tell the truth. It felt loud. That's all. He doesn't understand. Not yet. You lie down that night with your hands behind your head. The bandage around your arm has loosened. The skin beneath is angry red, but healing. You think of Lucanus again, of the sword with his name, of how quickly a fighter becomes a stain, a whisper, a reused blade. Your fame bought you nothing today. Not a blanket, not a better bowl of stew, not even your own name on your own sword. Just a few nods, a scribe's note, and the chance to do it all again tomorrow. The ache in your leg hasn't gone away. It's been 5 days since your last match, and every morning you wake up hoping it'll feel better. But it doesn't. You roll your knee in its socket, and it clicks softly, but ominously, like a door hinge that hasn't been oiled in years. You flex your ankle and something tugs, not a snap, not yet. Just warning. You don't tell anyone. Because here, injuries don't get you rest, they get you replaced. You join the morning drill slower than usual and try to hide the limp in your stride. It almost works. Almost. But one of the trainers notices. He eyes your leg. You pretend not to see him seeing. He says nothing, not yet. They've started pairing you with newer fighters again. Fresh bodies who are all knees and elbows, still flinching every time someone raises a blade. It's a weird kind of promotion. They want you to train them, to teach them how not to die too fast, how to bleed with rhythm, how to scream without looking ridiculous. You didn't ask for this role, but it's better than being ignored. One boy, Marcus, keeps backing away during drills. He lifts his shield too high, leaves his legs exposed. You correct him once, then again, then again. The fourth time you swing your gladius into his ankle, not hard, just enough to knock him over. He falls, yelps, scrambles back up. You lean in and say, "No one's going to wait for you to remember the form." He nods, red-faced. You know he won't forget again. You limp back to your mark. Pretend your own pain isn't flaring. Later, during a water break, you sit on the edge of the yard. A medicus walks by, glances at your leg. Still stiff, he asks. You shrug. Wrap it. Stay warm. If it swells, cut the training. You tear that tendon, and you're nothing but bait. He says it casually, like he's talking about bread going stale. You nod. Say nothing. That afternoon, the Lanista posts the schedule for the next games. You're not on it. You don't know whether to be relieved or insulted. You hear whispers, too stiff. Maybe he's done. They say the Dominus wants to send him south, to Capua, or worse, some backwater province where the sand is full of pebbles and the beasts aren't properly fed. You've heard of those places, where fighters are thrown into matches with half-trained animals or underarmed and overmatched. The crowd doesn't cheer in those arenas. They jeer. Or worse, don't react at all. That's the real nightmare here, not dying, being boring. Injury is dangerous not because it kills you, but because it makes you forgettable. Historians still argue whether injured gladiators were given time to heal or simply discarded like dull blades. Some records show famed fighters returning after months of rest. Others hint at men being quietly removed from rosters, their fates left blank. You know how it really works. If you're valuable, you get a bandage and a blessing. If not, you get a cart ride out the back gate. And that's where the real fear sets in. Because you're not sure which category you fall into anymore. You eat your barley stew in silence that night. No one sits beside you, not out of disrespect, just habit. Everyone senses the air around you has shifted. The moment you stop fighting, you stop mattering. You watch a group of younger fighters practicing under torchlight. They're sloppy, loud, full of energy. You envy that. Not the skill, they have none, but the hope, the belief that this is just a chapter in their lives, not the whole book. You remember feeling that way once. The first time you held a real sword, the first time you heard the crowd chant your name, the first time you thought maybe I can win my freedom. You haven't thought that in days, maybe weeks. Instead, you think about the next injury, the next limp, the next time the crowd turns their eyes to someone newer, louder, bloodier. That night, you try wrapping your leg with soaked linen. It helps a little, not much. You lie awake for hours, listening to the wind whistle through the stone slats of your cell. You try to remember what silence used to sound like, what sleep felt like before you learned to fear it. You dream of walking into the arena again. The crowd is gone. The sand is damp. There's no opponent, just the Lanista watching from above. He nods once, then turns away. You call out. He doesn't hear. You're alone, and your sword is too heavy to lift. You wake up with your heart in your throat, hand clutching the edge of your blanket like it's the only thing anchoring you to the present. You stare into the darkness. You're not injured enough to stop, but you're not whole enough to matter. You live in that awful middle place, too useful to discard, too broken to trust. You wake before the bell today, not because of noise or pain or even a nightmare. You wake because something's off. It's quiet, not silent, but quieter than usual. No shouting, no boots stomping in the corridor, no grunts from early sparring, just the faint rustle of sand outside and the hollow whistle of morning wind through stone. You sit up slowly, careful of your leg. It's stiff, but functional. You test your weight on it. Manageable. You've wrapped it tight, too tight probably, but the pressure gives you a strange kind of confidence, like a cracked vase bound with twine pretending it's still whole. Outside, the courtyard looks normal enough, until you notice the wooden gate slightly ajar. And the pit, not the training one, the real one, where they keep the beasts. You walk over slowly. No one stops you. No one says anything. Something's happening. The gate creaks wider. And then you hear it, a low rumbling growl that seems to vibrate through the soles of your feet. It's not loud, not theatrical, not the kind of thing a crowd would cheer for. It's worse. It's real. A lion, male, scarred, pacing just beyond the bars of a sunken cage. His fur is patchy tail, twitching like a whip. His eyes don't blink. You swear he's already memorized your height. Today you're not fighting another man, you're fighting him. You weren't told. No one tells you these things, but you've seen the signs. No matches scheduled, no assigned opponents. A quiet morning, a beast in the cage. It's an execution match. Only this time, you're the one expected to survive. Maybe you remember stories, tales whispered in the barracks about men thrown in with wild animals. Some say the beasts are starved beforehand to make them more vicious. Others claim they're drugged to give the gladiator a chance. Historians still debate how often these Venetion's beast fights resulted in death. The records are unclear. Some describe miraculous victories. Others suggest that if the animal didn't kill the fighter, the crowd often demanded the arena finish the job, because it wasn't just about danger, it was about spectacle. And nothing draws applause like a man facing something that doesn't understand rules. A beast has no honor, no hesitation, no fear. It only knows hunger. You're led into the preparation chamber by two guards. Neither speaks. One straps on your shoulder guard, the other tightens the manica. You don't recognize them. That makes you nervous. Your gear today is lighter. No helmet, just a reinforced arm guard, a short sword, and a net. A net. You almost laugh. What are you supposed to do? Snare it. But you don't ask questions. Questions make you look scared. You're already breathing too fast. Already sweating, even though it's barely sunrise. You're handed a trident. Now it's clear. They've cast you as a retiarius, a net and trident fighter, lightly armored, built for speed. Usually reserved for man-to-man matches. You've trained in the style but not mastered it, and never with a lion. The guards open the outer door. You step into the sand. The crowd is smaller than usual, maybe 200. Wealthy types, early risers, the kind who enjoy watching death with their breakfast. A few are still chewing olives. One drops a fig and doesn't bother to pick it up. They see you. Some cheer, some whisper. You scan the arena. No sign of the beast. Yet. Then the opposite gate rattles. Wood splits. Metal groans. and the lion steps out. It's bigger than you thought, taller than your chest, with paws the size of your face. Its eyes catch the sunlight like burnished bronze. It doesn't roar, doesn't charge. It just walks slow and measured, like it's already won. You grip the trident tighter. Your hand slips. Sweat. You take one cautious step forward. The lion blinks. Then it runs. You throw the net. It misses completely. You barely dive out of the way as the beast barrels past its flank, brushing your side like a wall of muscle and rage. You roll to your feet. Spin raise the trident. It charges again. This time you brace the shaft against the sand, angled just enough. The point scrapes its shoulder. It roars. The sound hits you in the chest like a wave. You stumble. And now it's circling you. Slow, methodical, like it knows. The crowd is screaming now. Not for you, not for the lion, for blood. Yours, his doesn't matter. You feint left. The lion tracks you. You jab. It dodges. You fake a stumble. It lunges. You thrust and connect. The trident pierces its side, not deep, but enough to make it recoil, just for a second. Long enough for you to scramble to your feet and grab the net again. You circle. It circles. The sun is in your eyes. Your leg is burning. You fake another jab, then swing the net wide, snagging its front paw. It trips just slightly, enough to buy you a heartbeat. You don't waste it. You charge. You scream. You drive the trident into its shoulder again. This time it sinks. The lion roars and swipes. You fly. Your back hits the sand. The trident's gone. The net's shredded. You scramble. The lion turns. And then a horn. The gate opens. Handlers rush in with spears shouting. The lion is driven back, bleeding, growling. You lie there, stunned, alive. The crowd is on its feet. They're not cheering. They're arguing. Some shout for mercy. Some want death. A robed man steps forward and raises his hand. Thumbs. Up. You're spared. Again. But the lion is not. It's dragged back through the gate, still roaring, still fighting. And you limp off the sand, bleeding, breathless heart, pounding like war drums in your throat. You didn't win, but you didn't die. And in this place, that's enough to be remembered. For now. They carry you back into the ludus on a wooden stretcher. You insisted you could walk, but the medicus took one look at your shoulder where the lion's claw left 4 neat, shallow gashes and muttered, "Unless you want to use your arm again, lie down." So you did. It feels strange being lifted, like a king, like a corpse. The others stare as you pass. Some widen their eyes in surprise. A few bow their heads in silent respect. One of the recruits, Pollux, says nothing but clasps his hands like he's seen a god float by. You've never hated anything more. Because in their eyes, you just became something otherworldly. You survived a lion. You're not a man anymore. You're a myth. And you know what happens to myths? They stop being real. They become stories, just interesting enough to talk about, but never close enough to touch. They're worshipped one day and forgotten the next. The medicus cleans the wound with wine. It burns like betrayal. He stitches quickly, efficiently. Tells you the claw marks are shallow, but could have severed the muscle if they had landed higher. You're lucky, he mutters, pressing the linen bandage down with a firmness that makes you wince. You don't feel lucky. You feel like you were measured, weighed, and nearly discarded. Still, the lanista comes to see you, which never happens. He stands in the doorway of the infirmary, arms crossed, lips pursed, like he's chewing on a bad deal. You sit up, half-dressed, shoulder-bound, trying not to look like you're in pain. He nods. Didn't expect you to last a minute. You say nothing. He grunts. Crowd liked it. They think you're blessed. Another pause. Don't let it go to your head. Next time it's 2 lions. He leaves. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. By midday, your story is already everywhere. Servants whisper it in corridors. Trainers refer to you with new reverence. The other fighters give you space now, not out of fear, but respect. Even the dominus visits. He brings you a better cut of meat, grilled, real salted. You haven't tasted anything this rich since before you arrived. You chew slowly. Your hands tremble. He doesn't sit, just watches. You're making me money, he says simply. Keep it up. And then he's gone. You finish every bite. The following day you return to the courtyard. You're not asked to train. You're invited to demonstrate. You swing a wooden trident before a group of wide-eyed novices. You show them footwork dodges, feints. You don't speak often, but when you do, they listen. Pollux keeps his eyes on you the whole time, mimics your movements, smiles every time you nod. You see it now. You've become someone else's goal, and that's the most dangerous role of all. The fame spreads fast, too fast. Your face, or some vague approximation of it, starts appearing on coin trinkets in the market, clay medallions, painted in red and bronze. You're told they sell for a few sestertii apiece. You'll never see any of it. Your likeness is scratched into a cup. A child shows it to you through the ludus gate, beaming. He says, "You're stronger than Hercules." You want to tell him you cried yourself to sleep last night, that your shoulder burns every time you breathe, that you can't lift your arm higher than your chest, that if you'd stepped half a second slower, you'd be bones in a lion's gut. Instead, you nod. Eat your vegetables, you say. He laughs like it's the cleverest thing anyone's ever said. That evening, the Dominus hosts a small feast for wealthy guests, politicians, maybe even a senator or two. You're not invited to eat, of course. You're part of the entertainment. They bring you out in polished armor, shining in the torchlight, your bandaged shoulder cleverly hidden beneath an ornate red sash. You stand still while they describe your great triumph over the beast. They say it took 10 minutes. It was 3. They say you didn't flinch. You screamed. They say you delivered the final blow. You don't even remember if you saw where the trident landed. But the guests drink and cheer and toss coins at your feet. And when a noblewoman presses a fig into your palm and says, "So brave," you smile and bow because you know what happens if you don't. You're still a slave, just a famous one. Later that night, back in the barracks, the glamour dissolves. You lie down slowly. The pain in your side is sharper today. Breathing feels like dragging glass through your ribs. Cassius whispers across the room, "Does it feel good?" You turn. To be known. You pause. "No," you say. Then what does it feel like? You think for a long time before answering, like being watched while you drown. He says nothing after that. Neither do you. Historians often debate how much fame gladiators truly had. Some were household names. Some were buried and forgotten. A few even had fan clubs, women who wore their names etched into necklaces or scratched onto the walls of bathhouses. But no historian can tell you what it feels like to be famous in a cage, to be applauded while still bleeding, to be celebrated with one hand and sent back to train with the other. Because here's the truth. The moment they love you, they begin preparing to replace you. And the only thing worse than being unknown in this place is being used up in full view of everyone. You don't get to enjoy fame. Not really. Because fame here doesn't come with rest. It comes with expectation. And expectation is the heaviest armor of all. You're back in the yard today, training again. Not light sparring, not teaching recruits. Real drills. The kind that make your fingers cramp and your breath come short. They say it's to keep your edge sharp. But what they mean is, don't make us look stupid. Next time you fight, you know what's happening. You're being tested. They want to see if the lion fight was a fluke, if the crowd's adoration was misplaced, if you're still worth betting on or ready to be sold to a smaller school, or worse, tossed into a novelty match against 3 half-trained boys wielding wooden clubs and too much hope. You move through the drills mechanically, parry lunge, twist, recover. Your footwork is clean, your strikes land, but your shoulder aches beneath the linen wrap, and your left leg still trembles if you pivot too fast. You feel off, but you push through. Because showing weakness isn't an option. You've seen what happens to those who do. Just this morning they hauled out Sextus. You remember him. Tall, lean, fast. Too fast, maybe. He snapped something in his hip last week during a match. Tried to hide it. Could barely walk afterward. They let him limp around for 2 days, then packed him onto a cart and sent him somewhere south. No one said goodbye. No one asked where he went, because deep down, everyone knows the answer. He won't be back. After drills, you're summoned. The Dominus is waiting in the shaded colonnade. He's dressed more finely than usual. Deep blue toga, new sandals, smelling of oil and citrus. Beside him stands a stranger, short, wiry, with a crooked smile and fingers stained with ink. A promoter, You've never met one before, but you've heard of them. This one studies you like a baker studies bread. Circles, once hands behind his back, eyes dancing over every bruise and scar. He's not tall, he says. The Dominus shrugs. Doesn't need to be. He limps. Crowd says it makes him look seasoned. Can he speak? The Dominus laughs. Only when necessary. The promoter looks you in the eye. We're planning a new exhibition, naval theme, flooded arena, floating platforms, light fighters, retiari. You've got the look. You don't say anything. He continues. You'd face two others, both lesser known, but fast, agile. You nod once, not agreement, acknowledgement. He grins. He'll do. And just like that, your fate is sealed again. You're given special gear for the match net, reinforced with metal weights, trident with a longer haft, waterproof sandals that pinch your feet in ways you didn't think possible. They rehearse the choreography with you. Yes, choreography, not to rig the fight, but to stage it. The fight is still real, but it has to look better than real. You're taught where to stand on the floating platform, how to fall without slipping into the water like a fool, how to make a hit look worse than it is, how to glance up at the audience just long enough for them to catch the glint of your suffering and cheer louder. It's exhausting. You used to think of yourself as a fighter. Now you know you're an actor whose body is the script. That night you walk past the beast pens again. The lion is gone. Dead or sold, you don't know. But in its place is something worse. Crocodiles. 4 of them chained and thrashing in ankle-deep water. One lunges as you pass, jaws snapping just short of the bars. You flinch. Instinct. A guard laughs. They're part of the show, maybe not yours. But soon, you stare into the reptile's eyes, blank, ancient, unreadable. It stares back. No fear, no thought, just hunger. You wonder how different you are from it now. The next morning you sit under the olive tree again. Pollux joins you. His tunic is too big, his sword too loose in his grip. He's not ready. He says, "They say you're going to fight on water." You nod. He frowns. Aren't you scared? You think about it, about the floating platforms, the slick sandals, the trident slipping from your hand if the grip is wet. The other fighters, younger and faster, trying to make a name for themselves by ending yours. About the crowd, their cheers, their hunger, their need for something new. You look at him. I'm always scared. He goes quiet, then says, "You don't look it. You smile just a little. That's the trick." That evening, you're given a scroll. Your name is on it. So are your scheduled matches for the next month. 4. 1 per week. Different venues. Different themes. Different opponents. You ask the scribe if that's normal. He shrugs. You're popular. Historians love to argue whether gladiators enjoyed their fame, whether it brought pride or pressure or both. Whether it bought better food, better clothes, better treatment. They miss the point. Fame doesn't lift you here. It tightens around you, like armor you can't remove, like a name you didn't choose, like a role you now owe to every face in the stands. You go to bed that night staring at the ceiling, your hands trembling from fatigue, your shoulder still sore from the lion swipe. Your dreams are waterlogged. In them you fall not from a blade or a beast, but from a stage. And no one catches you. They just cheer as you sink. You're standing in the middle of the flooded arena, water up to your knees. The sun is blinding. The heat rising off the sand now reflects off the water too, making it feel like you're breathing inside a forge. The floating platforms creak beneath your feet, slick with algae, unstable, barely wide enough to stand on with both feet apart. You grip the trident in your right hand. The net in your left feels heavier than usual, soaked and dragging. Every breath smells of brine sweat and the faint copper tang of rusted metal. This is the exhibition match they planned, and you're the star. You wish you weren't. The crowd is louder than ever. Hundreds have packed the stands today, shouting, laughing, flinging garlands and coins, all for a good view. Some wear masks shaped like gladiator helmets. Others carry painted fans with your face, or some twisted heroic version of it smeared across the paper in red and gold ink. You're introduced with Flair Valens, the silent blade slayer of the lion. The crowd erupts. You raise the trident because you're supposed to. Your opponents are already in place. Two younger men, both secutores, heavily armored short swords and shields built to push and press. They stand on opposite platforms, watching you breathing slow. This isn't a fight. It's a display. The horn blows. You move first fast, hopping to the next platform, trident angled down for balance. The wood wobbles beneath you, and for a moment your foot slips. You recover barely. They advance together. That's the trick. You've trained against one before. Never two. Never in water. You cast the net toward the closer one. He ducks. It misses planned, or not, you can't tell. The second opponent lunges from the side, and your platform rocks hard as his boot lands. You twist away, thrust the trident toward his midsection. It clangs off his shield, throws your balance. He knocks the shaft sideways, and you're forced to leap back to your starting platform. The crowd gasps, then cheers. They love the stumbles, the near falls. They love watching you almost die. The fight continues sloppy, unpredictable. You jab, spin kick. The net tangles once. You nearly fall into the water, twice. One of the secutores lands a shallow strike across your back, just enough to draw blood and drama. You return the favor, landing a blow to the side of his helmet that echoes like a drumbeat. Everything is harder in water, slower, heavier. The platforms float, drift, tilt underfoot. You begin to wonder if this was the point all along, to unbalance the known, to break the rhythm, to make even the best fighters look silly. Historians have long debated whether these aquatic exhibitions were common or rare. Some claim they were lavish distractions for elite audiences. Others argue they were crueler staged specifically to humiliate overpraised fighters. You now suspect both are true, because nothing feels dignified about slipping in water while 1,000 people scream at you to perform. Eventually, you corner one of them, trap him between two platforms, and drive your trident into his shield, then sweep his leg with the haft. He falls, splashes hard, submerged. Silence. He surfaces a second later, gasping. You leap over him to the next board. The other is waiting, too close. He swings. Your shoulder catches the blade. Pain blooms. You drop the net. He presses. You're too slow, too heavy now. The water has stolen your speed. You can't win like this. So you change the game. You fall. Intentionally. You let your feet slip from the platform and crash into the water with a roar. The crowd gasps again. He lunges down after you, and that's when you strike. Beneath the surface, you jam the trident upward, low, and to the side. It hits his hip. He yells. You both emerge, sputtering, thrashing. He stumbles backward. You climb up first. The crowd is on its feet now. The heat, the splashes, the sweat, the blood. This is what they came for. You raise your weapon. He doesn't charge again. The horn blows. The match ends. You're not declared the winner, but you're the one still standing. And in this world, that's what counts. The other two are helped from the water. You're left to walk out alone, wet, bleeding, exhausted. Back in the barracks, the medicus tends to your shoulder. Another deep scratch. No stitches, just paced pressure and silence. You sit there while he works arms, limp at your sides. The door creaks. The promoter walks in, smiling. You were perfect, he says. They loved it. You're going back on the roster for the Saturnalia showcase. You close your eyes. That's in 4 days. Rest well, he adds, turning to go. You'll want to be sharp. It'll be with beasts again. You open your mouth. Say nothing, there's nothing left to say. That night you dream of water again. But this time there's no crowd, no platforms. Just you, alone, sinking deeper. The trident slips from your hand. Your feet stop kicking. And finally, quiet. True quiet. The kind that no cheer can interrupt. You try to rest. You really do. 4 days between matches should feel like a gift, a breath, a pause, a chance to let your muscles cool and your bones remember what it's like not to scream every time you roll over, but instead you count every hour like a condemned man watching the sun crawl across the floor of his cell. Because the next fight is different. This one is during Saturnalia, the biggest festival of the year, which means a packed arena. Nobles, senators, merchants, foreign guests, even rumors of an imperial cousin attending. And most importantly, beasts. Not lions this time. Something worse. Bears. 2 of them. And not the scrawny kind dragged from some half-starved forest in the north. These were imported, fed, trained to fear whips and chase noise. You heard a guard say it, bigger than the cart that brought them. You don't sleep much after that. On the second night, you're woken by shouting. At first, you think it's another dream, but the panic in the voices is real. You push off your cot and limp into the corridor. Smoke. Thin at first, but growing. You cover your nose. The storage hall, the one near the pens, is on fire. You don't ask how. You don't care who. You just move. You follow the others as they grab buckets and cloths, forming lines from the well to the blaze. No one's yelling orders. Everyone just acts like they've done this before, which they probably have. You throw water. You cough. You slip and cut your hand. But the fire dies, eventually. What doesn't die? The bear. One escaped during the chaos, killed a guard, clawed through a stable wall. Took an hour to recapture. When they drag it back in chains, its fur is singed and matted with blood, not its own. The trainer says it'll make the crowd love it even more. You believe him. You wish you didn't. The day before the fight, you're summoned. Again, this time to the scribe's office. You expect paperwork, maybe another name change, maybe a revised match order. But what you get is worse. An offer. You've got pull now, the scribe says, barely looking up from his scroll. The Dominus wants to try something. You wait. He continues, merchandise, trinkets, endorsements. We sell statues, oils, spoons with your name carved in them. You blink. Spoons, he shrugs. People like what they can hold. You ask, and what do I get? He finally looks up. The honor of being marketable. You laugh once. It hurts your ribs. He doesn't. That evening, your dinner comes with wine. Real wine. Diluted, yes, but sweet and smooth. You're told to rest. Don't train. Look strong. Not tired. For the first time in weeks, your muscles feel loose enough to stretch without screaming. Your bandages stay clean. Your hands don't tremble while eating. Pollux visits briefly. He's due to fight next month. He asks, any advice you think about it, then say, bleed at the right time. He nods, slowly. Doesn't ask what that means. You both know he'll figure it out the hard way. You sleep a little that night. A miracle. The barracks are quiet. The air is cool. You dream of trees, not the arena, not beasts. Just trees, tall green, swaying in a wind you can't feel. You wake up calmer than expected, and that scares you more than anything else. The morning of the match is crisp. The sky is cloudless. The arena gates are already open by sunrise. The crowd spills in early, dressed in bright colors, tossing flower petals and salted nuts into the stands. You're oiled, armored, not heavily, just enough to gleam. You're handed a spiculum, a long-throwing spear, and a gladius as backup. The trainer slaps your back. Don't hesitate. You nod, but you already know You will hesitate, not from fear, from calculation, because you've learned the crowd likes close calls more than clean kills. They like risk. They like when death taps your shoulder and you turn around just in time. The gate opens. The crowd roars. You step into the arena again and everything disappears except the sand beneath your feet, the heat on your skin, and the rattling of the chains behind the far gate. You know what's coming. You just hope it's only one at a time. The gate creaks. The bear enters, massive, black, breathing loud enough to drown the noise of the crowd. It rears up, and the crowd screams in joy. This isn't a fight. It's a dance with a mountain. You grip the spear tighter. Wait. Wait. It charges. You don't throw, not yet. You sidestep. Barely, it brushes past. You feel the wind from its body, like a wave of hot leather. You spin, aim, throw. The spear strikes its flank, not deep, planned. The bear turns. Now it's angry. Perfect. What follows is chaos. Dodges, stumbles, near misses. You keep your strikes light but flashy. The bear lunges. You duck. The crowd loses its mind. Then finally, you stab deep, just once, enough to stagger it. It roars, collapses, breathing, alive. You step back, raise your hand. The crowd doesn't chant for death. They chant your name over and over. Valens, Valens, Valens. The Dominus steps forward, raises his thumb. Spared. Again. You exhale. You're still breathing, still standing, and you already know tomorrow they'll want more. You don't remember walking back to the ludus. You remember the heat, the sand clinging to the sweat in the creases of your knees, the weight of the gladius still in your hand long after the bear had stopped moving. You remember the roar of the crowd echoing like thunder between your ears, even as the arena faded behind you. But the walk itself, gone. Your body moved without you, carried you down the stone corridor through the gate, past the guards, nodding silent, and back into the barracks. You're sitting now, half undressed, tunic clinging to your skin. Your hands tremble, not from fear, from relief. The fight is over. You're alive. And that means you've just become more valuable. That's the part you hate the most. Someone brings you water. It tastes like metal and dust. The medicus checks your shoulder again. Healing well, he says. You might even get full rotation back. You nod. Say nothing. He doesn't expect conversation anymore. You look across the room. A new face lies on a cot. Young, pale face, still blotchy from crying. His tunic is clean. His sandals are tied wrong. You know that look. Fresh meat. Pollux sits beside him, talking softly. You catch a few words. Focus on the feet. Don't blink when they swing. If you get hit early, sell it. He's repeating what you told him. And just like that, the wheel turns again. That evening, the Dominus hosts another gathering. You don't attend, but you hear your name through the walls, through the floorboards, through the clatter of silver plates and shallow laughter. They speak of you like a ghost that refuses to die. You hear a woman say, "I would pay 100 denarii to see him fight 2 bears." You hear a man respond, "He makes it look too easy. Give him a crocodile next time." You press your hand into your thigh until it leaves a bruise. You tell yourself it's to stay grounded, but you know it's because you want to feel real. The next day they offer you gold. Not much. A small pouch. Enough to buy a pig, maybe. Maybe a few days in a tavern. A thank you, they say, for putting on a good show. You stare at it for a long time. You want to ask, what would I even buy? Freedom that's not for sale. Not yet. Not for a pig's worth of coins. Still you take the pouch. You hide it in your mattress, like a child, hiding sweets. You don't know why. 3 days later, a runner arrives. You're scheduled again. This time, in Ostia, Rome's bustling port town. Different crowd, different expectations. You'll be fighting a man they call the Storm of Carthage. A secutor, tall and brutal, undefeated in 12 matches. His name alone sells tickets. They want you to break his streak, or die trying. You nod. The Dominus claps you on the shoulder like you're a favored hound. No theatrics, he says. No animals. No nets. Just blood. For once you appreciate the honesty. The ride to Ostia is long. Dusty roads, jostling carts. You ride with 3 other fighters. None speak. One prays under his breath. Another carves marks into the wood with his thumb. You count the blisters on your palm, trace the outline of the callus beneath your sword fingers. You don't look at the crowd when you arrive. You look at the sand, because that's where you'll be judged. You meet your opponent briefly, backstage, so to speak. He's tall, wide, thick arms, scar down his lip. He doesn't speak either, just nods. You nod back, no hatred, just purpose. When the match begins, the roar is different, less joyful, more demanding. You're not the hero here, you're the spoiler. They don't want to see you win. They want to see you earn the right to exist in their eyes. You oblige. The fight is fast, brutal. No room for flair, just efficiency. You parry. He slams you backward, you duck. He grazes your ribs, you stab low. He turns, you feint. He lunges, you spin. Your gladius cuts his side, deep, wet, final. He drops, just like that. The crowd gasps, then cheers, because they love a winner. Even one they didn't ask for. You don't raise your arms. You don't look at them. You just walk off, back to the tunnel, back to the dust, back to the truth that nothing's changed, not really. You're still fighting, still owned, still one bad step from being forgotten. And now you're a threat. That night back in the ludus, you sit with your feet in the cold trough behind the kitchens. You breathe. You listen to the horses in the next yard. You think about your name, your real one, not the one they chant, the one you haven't heard spoken in months, the one your mother gave you. It floats through your head like a memory you're not supposed to touch. And you wonder if the price of being remembered by thousands is being forgotten by yourself. The next few weeks pass in a blur of bruises, cheers, and silence. 3 more fights, 3 more wins. one against a Thracian with fast hands and a jagged blade, one against a towering Samnite who fought like a boar charging through brush, and one in a surprise exhibition match where the Dominus pit you against two half-trained recruits in what was clearly meant to be a show of dominance, not for you, but for the brand he was building on your back. You beat them all, not cleanly, not without pain, but decisively. The kind of victories that leave no doubt in the minds of the crowd. The kind that stretch your name across Rome like a red ribbon fluttering from the mouths of children, gamblers, butchers, and bored nobles alike. You are no longer a gladiator. You are the gladiator, and you are starting to hate what that means. The changes begin quietly. First, your gear is upgraded. Subtle differences, smoother leather straps, better balance on the gladius polished bronze greaves that don't bite into your shin with every step. You're told it's a reward. Then the food shifts. Still mostly barley, but now with additions, herbs, figs, once even honeyed dates. The guards joke about it. The lion-eater dines like a senator now. You force a smile. Later, you find that two of your peers were moved to lesser shifts so you could have more time to rest. You try to protest. The trainer shrugs. You draw coin. They don't. That hits harder than any blade. Pollux trains beside you most mornings now. He's getting stronger, his footwork cleaner, his instincts sharper. You watch him practice a parry you taught him. He gets it right. You don't tell him, because you've learned praise creates hope, and hope is dangerous here. He's scheduled for his first match next week. He asks what to expect. You want to say, everything will change, but instead you tell him, win or lose. Remember where you are. He nods, not quite understanding. He will. A letter arrives. You don't see who brings it. You don't recognize the handwriting. But it has your name, your real name, written in cramped ink on a thin strip of parchment, tucked between your bandages after training. You read it twice before you even believe it's real. It's from your sister, still alive, still in the village where you were taken. She heard a traveler speak of a man who fought a lion and lived. Heard the name Valens whispered. Somehow she knew it was you. She writes of the river you used to swim in, the orchard behind your father's house. She asks if you remember how you used to chase dragonflies and fall asleep in the hay. She says your mother still sets a place at the table for you on feast days. You sit for a long time after reading it. Then you fold the letter. You don't cry. You can't. Because if you start, you might not stop. And your next match is in 2 days. Against a man they're calling the Bone Collector. The name turns out to be well earned. He fights like he's breaking down furniture, efficient, brutal, loud. He roars with every strike, hurls his shield at you mid-match, and chases you like a man possessed. The crowd loves it. You hate it. Because you realize something halfway through the fight. He doesn't care about winning. He cares about hurting. Your shoulder takes a hit. Your thigh another? He grins wide and red-eyed. You shift your stance and end it, a clean thrust under his rib, angled up. He falls, gasping. You back away, bloody and winded, and look up at the crowd. They hesitate, then roar, because pain is entertaining, but death delivered beautifully is unforgettable. The Dominus is waiting when you return. He doesn't speak at first, just walks beside you toward the barracks, then says, "We could free you." You stop. He continues calm as a merchant haggling over goats. One more match, a special one, high stakes. Emperor's cousin will be there. Win, and I'll put your name in for manumission. You stare at him. "Freedom," he says again. "That's what you want, isn't it? Is it?" You nod slowly, but in your chest, something turns cold. Later that night, you read your sister's letter again. She wrote a second line you missed before. It says, "Don't forget who you were, even when they've turned you into someone else." You fold the letter once more and tuck it deep inside the sole of your sandal where no one will find it. You lie back and close your eyes, because the next fight could be the last, and whether you live or die. You know now the only way out of this place is through fire. The sun rises slow the morning of the final match, not lazy, not reluctant, just deliberate, like it knows what's coming and wants to take its time, arriving. The sky over the ludus is pale gold streaked with thin clouds that don't promise rain, just color, a false softness. You're already awake. You didn't sleep. You sat on your cot through the night, feet planted on the cold stone back against the wall, staring at nothing, thinking of everything, thinking of home, of the orchard behind the house, of dragonflies and hay, of your mother's voice, faint now like something from an old dream, and of the letter in your sandal. You don't read it again. You don't need to. The Dominus sends a fresh tunic, new sandals, a cleaner belt. You dress slowly, feeling the weight of every buckle, every strap. Not heavy in the physical sense, just significant, like a costume you didn't ask to wear. You catch your reflection in a puddle near the yard. You don't recognize the man staring back, and somehow that feels right. You ride to the Colosseum in a cart with 2 guards and 1 quiet scribe who never looks up from his tablet. He's jotting match details, time title, odds, names. You glance once and see yours listed not as Valen's, but as the blade who defied beasts. It sounds like something from a myth. You wonder if they'll remember the person behind it, or just the shape of your shadow in the arena. They give you a waiting cell beneath the arena floor. It smells of blood and oil. You sit alone, listening to the muffled roar above waves of sound rolling through stone and sand. You hear music, horns, drums, laughter, screams. It's Saturnalia after all. They came for joy, but they'll settle for blood. A guard appears at the door. He nods once. It's time. The corridor leading to the arena gate is longer Then you remember. You walk it like a tunnel toward something permanent. The gate groans open, and you step into the light. The arena is massive, wider than any you've fought in. The crowd is endless, draped in silk, shouting your name, tossing petals, coins, scraps of bread. They love you. They don't know you. It doesn't matter. You stand in the center. Your opponent enters from the far side. You've never seen him before. Tall, dark-eyed, broad-shouldered. He carries 2 curved blades and walks with a predator's patience. No theatrics, no pose, just presence. He doesn't look at the crowd. He looks at you. You nod once. He nods back. The horn sounds. The fight begins quiet, measured, a slow circle. 2 men who know what they're doing. You feint left. He mirrors. You jab. He steps in. You twist. He backs away. The crowd wants noise. You give them focus. Then he strikes. Fast. Low. You deflect again. Higher. You block. The rhythm builds. Feet on sand. Steel against steel. Grunts. Grit. Dust in the air. He nicks your side. You stagger. The crowd roars. You spin and catch him with a glancing blow across the ribs. Now they howl. And you realize it's not about who wins. It's about how you both bleed. You press forward. He counters. Your blade sings. His whistles. The sun above feels close. Heavy. Watching. Minutes pass like heartbeats. And then it happens. You see an opening. A single breath. A misstep. You thrust low. He doesn't dodge in time. Steel finds flesh. He collapses, gasping. You stand over him. You look up. The crowd freezes, waiting. The Dominus stands. He raises a hand. Thumb up. You drop your weapon and walk away. Back in the tunnel, no one speaks. Not at first. Then the Dominus appears, grinning. You did it. You nod once. Manumission, he says. In writing, you're free. You exhale. It doesn't feel like victory. It feels like release. Later, in a quiet corner of the ludus, you take off your sandals. You remove the folded letter. You hold it to your chest. And for the first time in months, you feel like a man again. Not a myth, not a shadow, not a story told over wine and applause. Just you. The torches have long since burned down to quiet stubs, and the crowds have drifted home, their laughter fading into the cool Roman night. The sand has been swept, the blood has dried, the gates of the arena are closed, and only silence remains. You sit alone back against the barrack wall, head tilted toward the stars. For the first time in what feels like years, no one is watching you. No one is waiting for you to fight or fall or entertain. You are not a weapon, not a figure, not a mask. You are just still. The pain in your leg is dull now, like a memory. The scar on your shoulder no longer stings. The bandages are gone. The bruises remain, but they are quiet, fading. A breeze moves through the courtyard, cool, and light. You close your eyes and imagine it's the wind from the orchards of home. You imagine grass instead of gravel beneath you, leaves rustling instead of armor, clanking, the scent of apples, not sweat and oil. You breathe deep and you let go because the fight is over. And for the first time in a long time, you don't have to wake up sharpening your edge. You don't have to perform. You don't have to survive. You just have to rest. So go ahead now. Let your eyes close. Let the stillness take you. Let your heart beat slow. The sand won't call your name tonight, and neither will the crowd. You are no longer theirs. You are finally yours. Good night, warrior. You made it.